All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. I am so glad to be with you on a Monday night here doing the live stream. And look who we have back with us. It's been a while. Thrash Pondo Ponds. We've been missing schedules as of late. And
The end of the year is always crazy with the holidays and stuff like that, but
it is a
more than
little
mhm.
nutty. I mean, we're gonna get back to normal here pretty soon. I mean, I'm back to normal already. Just to let everybody know, I did film a five things you didn't know about square pegs today, and it is up for all you Honeycomb Hideout listeners. Get to watch it. Get to watch it today. But if you're not, you get to wait till tomorrow, which is okay. I mean, sometimes you gotta wait till tomorrow, but you have a little incentive to be a Honeycomb Hideout member. So let's say hi to everybody in the chat room real quickly.
Daryl Johnson, he was here before I was. Good to
Yeah,
see you.
good to see you. It says don't forget to hit the like button. That is awesome.
Trathos Miner says hi, everyone. Hi to you,
Hi,
Tracy.
hi Tracy, Honeycomb Hideout listener and watcher.
Blackadder, he says hi to Tracy.
He says hi to Tracy too. Well, we're saying hi to you, Blackadder, as well. I love that show, by the way, Blackadder. That was hilarious. Rowan Atkinson, wasn't it?
Blackadder, Yes, Rowan Atkinson. And
Right.
Hugh Laurie did a number of
Yeah.
installments of it too.
Yeah. Right.
With his
Right.
English
Right.
accent.
All right. And look, Spike Spikerson.
Spike Spikerson. Hey to you too, Spike Spikerson.
You're a funny guy, Spike. You are a funny guy. I loved reading your comments on our last one. It was pretty hilarious. And Blackadder also says,
Here for a little bit. Well, whatever duration, we'll be happy to have you.
yeah, we're glad. We're glad you're here. And I chiped in with hi, everyone, in Retro Serial. And I think that's it. Oh, no. Whoa, we got a question already here for
Oh, a
us.
question. From Terrell Eugene Berenger. Hi, Ian. Before we get started, what are your thoughts on the passing of Betty White, one of the last great funny ladies from the golden age of TV?
I will answer that momentarily. I do just want to say hi to a couple other people who have entered in. And I want to say hi to
Um,
Mr. Led.
Mr.
How you
Led, hi,
doing?
Ian Thresh. Oh, and by the way, I just want to apologize to everybody. I'm doing this from my phone, so the print is very small. So if I stumble over a word or two, it's because my eyes are really starting to go.
Right, right. And Cindy D also writes,
Cindy D, my lady. Hello, yes. Thank you, Ian. Square Pegs was my idea. Hi, Thrash.
yeah, Cindy, I at the end of the video, I totally forgot to say that, and I want to say that, like, if I get an idea from an audience member, I want to say this idea came from this, and I did that with Terrell, and you're gonna have to forgive me because I totally spaced it off at the very end, and so, but I am saying it now that the idea for the square pegs came from Cindy D. So all right, well, let's get back. Tonight is just a matter of catching up with each other and talking a little bit and seeing where the conversation leads us. And so I don't mind talking about whatever you guys want to talk about. Really, if you have questions for me or for Thrash or whatever, however you want this conversation to go, believe me, I have no shortage of words when it comes to talking. I have the gift of gab, and I've got the websites to prove it, or the YouTube channels to prove it. So here we go. All right. Hi, Ian.
Um,
Well, we already read this one. Well, let me
so
just say here. It sounds funny that at 99, for me to say I was surprised, but I was surprised. I was just like, no way. Like at first, when first something comes up in your news feed, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram, which is what I do mostly, you think maybe it's a joke or maybe it's not true or it's not real. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, different people have died and then they didn't die. It's reported and it didn't happen. So I thought, oh, well, that can't be true. And then I looked at the little thing and it was like TMZ or something like that. And I was very shocked. I'm like, no, this really? And of course, I didn't know how many more years she had in her, but I really wasn't expecting her to die soon. Especially this close to her 100th birthday. And so I was taken by surprise. I was shocked. And I mean, she seemed to be in health. And so that was just kind of sad for me, really. I mean, it was really kind of sad. We don't see anybody pass, even at any age. This is why enemy is considered or death is considered the last enemy. Yes, Thrash Pondo, tell me what you think.
Well, with me, it was sort of becoming like Dick Clark. Just, I knew everyone died, but some people you just think get a hall pass and they're just going to be around forever. And then when they do pass, you're just not really prepared for it. You remember about 25 years or so ago, 20 years, we went through the same thing with George Burns, who just made it to his 100th year. I believe he died 2 months after he turned 100. But still, something I thought, look, the man's going strong. He could last another 20 years. Well, at a certain point, it becomes a little far-fetched. I was really, really hoping Betty would make it to the 100 mark. We got my daughter for Christmas. We got her tickets to her 100th birthday on a Fathom. There was a Fathom event all planned. They're still having it, by the way. Just sadly, Betty's not going to be around for it. So we really felt, Norman Lloyd, he made it to 106, almost 107. I figured Betty still had a few good years left in her. I really did. So yes, I was a bit shocked myself.
Yeah, me too. Me too. All right, let's get to some of these comments here.
Ah, yes. Blackadder, if you know the lyrics to California Dreams TV show, you are good at 90s pop culture.
I must be terrible at it because I don't know the lyrics and I don't even know the TV show. What's the TV show?
I'm racking my brains. I thought I knew it, but I was thinking of American Dreams, which was the show set around the time of American Bandstand, which I'm not 100% is not the one that Mr. Blackadder's thinking of. California Dreamin' was a song by the Mamas and the Papas.
Papas, I know that
yes.
one. But,
and since we were just talking about Dick Clark, I think he meant American Dreams. And I remember some of the lyrics, we could dance all night. I would also probably dance with copyright infringement if I went too far. But I actually have the box set of the first season, Mr. Blackadder, if that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, could be. Georgia Aris writes, hi, gentlemen. Hi, Georgia. I'm so glad you could be joining us this evening for this live chat.
Georgia's always on my mind.
Okay, let's see here.
Darrell Eugene Barringer says, Square Pegs was Freaks and Geeks before Freaks and Geeks. Canceled before their time.
Yeah.
Could not agree with you more.
Yeah, it was interesting because there were Square Pegs, but then there was My So-Called Life. And then after My So-Called Life, right at the 2000 mark, was Freaks and Geeks. And what's interesting is they all kind of share this this history or this theme of, kind of high school being a geek or being a nerd or being a dork or whatever it is you want to call it. And,
disenfranchised.
Yeah, disenfranchised to one degree or another. And they all only had one season. That was it. Freaks and Geeks, My So-Called Life, and Square Pegs, one season. That was it for each of them. By the way, did you know the difference? I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard, do you know the difference between a geek and a dork?
Why don't you go ahead and tell me?
I don't know if this is true or not. This is just something that I heard. And that is, a geek is somebody who's a geek disenfranchised, but doesn't mind it. But a dork is actually somebody who wants to be popular, but can't. They're a geek, right, but they want to be popular, but they can't. And I think a nerd is somebody who doesn't really even know. Like there's somebody who's kind of like, no, but doesn't even know that they're a dork or a geek or whatever. So I think, I don't know. I've heard that before. I've heard people try to say like, what's the difference between those two? So
I always love the idea that a geek is someone who they seem almost comparatively normal until you just sort of hit that one chord. Like, they walk, you wouldn't really notice anything different about them until someone says Star Trek. and they said all of a sudden become. Did you know that in episode 75 there was actually a walk-on from the guy who was actually in? It's like they have this bizarre knowledge on a certain
Right.
topic, which makes them scary.
Right, right. Well, you could be a geek in one aspect of your life too. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
not,
definitely,
you know,
definitely.
like you have one kind of narrow aspect, not and have it not be uh global. You know, I had a friend like that who was kind of nerdy when it came to martial arts, but he was like a really popular kid. He was super popular with everything else, and then like for some reason he was just in the nerd crowd when it came to the martial arts. um and you know, for me, when I was growing up, I was definitely kind of caught between dork and geek and nerd and all that stuff. I was definitely in between all that. I really wanted to be popular, and I wasn't, and I liked a lot of stuff people didn't like, and I was not into athletics. You know that, so I definitely, you know, as I got older, I kind of um I don't know if I say I grew out of it, but people don't generally look at me and think, oh, that person is a geek, or they would have guessed that he was a nerd or a dork or something like that. But in school, I certainly was. I was the kind of guy who brought, you know, his Millennium Falcon to school to show his friends. You know, so that's that's the kind of person I was, and wouldn't think a word about it, and then wonder why people were, you know, like I couldn't sit at the,
Doesn't
you know,
everyone bring a Millennium Falcon to school? You know.
or my Transformers or something like that. I remember bringing a Transformer one time in sixth grade, and my sixth grade teacher just took it from me. Just like, this is, you can't have this. And I had to beg for it back at the end of the day. Like, can I please take this home? It's like, don't ever bring this again to school. It's distracting. I'm like, all right, I won't bring it to school. All right.
Well,
Did
it
you
was more than meets the eye.
did you? Yeah, I did. I'll bring the robot. I'm like, yeah, it was a car, but see, now I brought a robot, so it's something completely different. What about you? Were you a geek or a nerd in school or anything like that, or disenfranchised in any way?
I would have to
Early?
go with geek. I was definitely disenfranchised, definitely. Even though I played football, I was never like the song goes. You know, I'm in with the in crowd. I was not in with the in crowd. Never really liked the circle. They always seemed very very vapid and superficial to me, and I was always into things which they thought weren't essentially cool. I always managed to find whatever it was at the moment. I was into comic book for a long time. I was into wrestling for a long time. I was into well, of course, sci-fi. That goes without saying. And these were always things that were sort of peripheral interests.
Mm,
But I always thought that that made me, um, you know, cooler than they were. I was a one percenter as opposed to the mainstream.
hmm,
Mainstream everything always seemed a little banal
yeah,
to me. So I always went against the current, with
that's
varying
cool.
degrees of success. I must confess.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting. I think I was the geek that people were afraid to admit they liked. You know what I mean? Like, I like, if I ever was with somebody by themselves that was in the in crowd, we'd have a good time talking. You know, we would talk and stuff. But when they would go back to their crowd, I would definitely go back to my crowd, and they would, you know, like, not like say hi to me in front of their friends and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
those types. Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, I just, you know, I got along with people kind of more on a one-on-one basis, but as far as a crowd was concerned, I didn't fit in. All right, let's see here. Cindy D says,
Cindy D. No problem, Ian C. I'm just glad you did it.
"Oh, thank you. I appreciate that." I think she's talking about when I said that I didn't
Square
mention her in the
pegs.
video and square pegs. I would have loved to, and I just forgot.
John H. Hey, John, how we doing?
Hey,
Um,
John.
I watched. I watched F and G a few times, but I didn't get into the show so much. I didn't relate to the freaks at all, and only halfway to the geeks. I was about the age of the geeks at the time.
So you were kind of maybe in high school at that time, or at the. Oh no. Let's see what he says. When the show was
The
set
show
in
was set in
1980.
1980.
Got it. Yeah, that's true. The show was set in 1980, so you were about that age, that same age. Well, consider yourself lucky. It wasn't an easy road to hoe. I mean, I look back on it now, and I'm glad. You know, you know, it kind of molded me into the boisterous personality that allows me to sit in front of a microphone and not be afraid. But at the same time, it was not always easy. And I struggled a lot with why can't I get friends, or why can't I get do this, or why can't I do that. It was a little bit troubling at the time, but if you push through it, it's way better. I think being a geek and being grown up is I have a way better life now than I would have if I hadn't endured such things, or if I hadn't been in such things. And that's my opinion too. I'm not trying to put anybody else down or anything like that, but I just think that it just worked out better for me. All right, let's see.
Oh, Nancy D. I was too. There has always been a Betty White.
Yeah,
I think she's
Nancy.
referring. We just weren't ready for her passing.
Yeah, Nancy, it was really sad. I'm glad you could join us for the show tonight. Thank you for joining us. But yeah, I get it. I mean, we just weren't ready. It sounds so weird saying she was 99 and we were all surprised she died, but it's so true. And Cindy D writes,
We all thought she'd make it to 100. We sure did.
yeah, 100
We
and
certainly
beyond.
did.
Quite honestly, I didn't think she was going to die anytime soon or whatever,
When I was a little kid, speaking of 1980, I remember I was like 12 years old and I had twisted my ankle. I had to go to the hospital. And there was a 100-year-old lady in the hospital. And it was the first time in my life I'd ever seen a 100-year-old person. And it was like almost science fiction. Nowadays, 100 isn't that unusual. It's impressive, but it's not as unusual as it was 40 years ago. So, yeah, why wouldn't she make it to 100, going as strong as she was?
Yeah. Did you know that John Taylor, the president of the the guy who was the president of the United States, I think like I don't know, fifth or sixth president, I can't remember. We'd have to look it up. But John Taylor has one surviving grandson today.
Wait,
And
John Tyler, you mean, or Zachary Taylor? John Tyler.
John Tyler
Okay.
has one surviving grandson today, and actually recently had two surviving grandsons. And the one just died, and he was the president before Abraham Lincoln. And what happened is when he was in his 80s, he fathered children, and then one of his kids fathered children in his 80s. So it's not that, I mean, you can picture somebody 100 years old having a baby on their lap, and then that person being on a baby's, being on the lap of somebody who's 100 years, that way, so it's crazy.
It would be more impressive if Betty White had a child at 100, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been
too soon. Sorry. Lisa Fields. Hi, guys. Lisa. I'm not Lisa. How you doing, Lisa? Good to see you.
Lisa. Yes, very good to see you. Thank you for joining us on the live stream tonight.
John H. Betty's TV career went back to 1939.
Wow.
I didn't realize it went back that far. I knew it was very far back, but 1939.
Yeah.
Trather Osmeyer says, Ian, I am so impressed by you. You are a great preacher.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm very honored that you actually listened to the sermon. That's really good, and high praise coming from you. And God's good. I'm just a vessel, so God's good, and but I do appreciate that. And keep listening over there on that other channel if you're interested.
While we're talking, do you prefer a preacher or pastor?
It doesn't matter. I don't really didn't really matter to me. I don't think anybody even calls me either one. I think people just call me Ian. So
I call you pastor, but that's okay.
Huh? What's that?
It's whatever. I referred to you as pastor when I posted on your sermon.
Oh yeah, that's
Yes.
fine. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. My degree is more important to me. Actually, I kind of like, please call me doctor. No.
Oh yeah, Dr. Pastor.
Yeah, no.
No.
It's just Ian.
Spike Spikerson. That was sad. I thought we'd always have Betty. You and me both,
Yeah.
lad. You and me both.
Right.
John H. I remember seeing Square Pegs at least once when Tony Dow played the dad of the first of the girls.
Tony Dow played the dad of the first of the girls. Wow. Well, I know that there were so many, and when I posted that, one of the things I lamented at the end of it, which you'll all see tomorrow, is I lamented the fact that it was it was only I could only do 5 facts. There were so many cool and interesting things about that show that I found out, and it's true with a lot of shows I watch, or I do the 5 things about. Like there are so many things about growing pains and stuff, but for me, when I'm sifting through it, it's just like, okay, what would interest people? I'm always thinking that, like, what would interest people? There are a lot of cool facts, but what's going to wow the crowd? What's going to make the crowd go, oh, that's interesting? And so for me, it's easy. It's kind of easy to choose between 5 and 6. But on this one, it's easy for me to choose like 7 and then have to cut 2. But on this one, there were so many that I just didn't even know. I was so sad when I had to cut some, and because it had such a great cast to it. Everybody in the cast and all the writers deserved at least one fact attributed to them. And it might even deserve a part 2, because there were so many interesting facts about that show that I looked up, even just with 20 episodes and 1 season. So, yeah,
I was
sad.
just talking about Square Pegs the other day too, because on my Star Trek retrospect, one of the cast members was in one of the Star Trek films, and I don't want to give away one of your facts, so I'm not. Oh, I can go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead. I know who
really.
You're talking about. Yeah.
Yes, Merritt Buttrick. I know I butchered that name, but he, of course, played William Shatner's short-lived son.
Yeah.
First appearing in Star Trek II, and sadly, spoiler alert, passing on in Star Trek III. And when I was just doing my retrospect of the Star Trek film franchise, I was talking about him and Square Pegs and how he was the lovable punk rocker, like totally.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, he's new wave, is what he says in the show. He's like, they ask him, "Are you really a punk rocker?" And he's like, "No way, man. I'm new wave. I'm new wave." It's
totally different head.
Yeah,
totally,
completely different.
Lisa Fields. It was shocking. I thought she was going to make it.
Yeah, make it. Yeah, for sure. We did. We thought she was going to make it. Let's see. And as you said already, John H. writes.
John H. writes, Bob Hope also got to 100 in a couple of months.
Yeah, you were just talking about that, Thrash.
I was talking about George Burns.
Oh, George, yes, you were talking about George Burns.
George Burns.
Yes.
Who worked with Bob Hope at one point, but yes.
Yeah. I know who you meant. I just get names confused in my head. So yeah, Bob Hope also made it to 100 in a couple of months. Well, good for him. I'm hoping to make it to 120. So we'll see.
I'm hoping for 60. Terrell Eugene Barringer writes, it's sad to know that all the major cast members of the Mary Tyler Moore Show are now no longer with us. At least we still have John Amos. Yes, we do. Even though he was only in for a handful of episodes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and the Mary Tyler Moore Show is something I watched, but it's not something I geeked out on enough for me to know too much about that show. Probably the most I know about that show is just, other than what I've watched, what Dave has put out on his channel.
Oh, really?
Catching up there, hitting it. I don't really know too much about the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
My mom loved the show, so I watched it a lot when I was a kid and kind of get into it. So I watched it in reruns and whatnot. I enjoyed it because it was part office humor, but part personal humor, because about her and her friends, Rhoda and Phyllis, and their little adventures as well. In fact, here's a trivia question for you. Henry Winkler made his TV debut on that show, I believe.
Oh, really?
Or at least if it wasn't his debut, it was very, very early. But I think this actually predated Happy Days. And he plays Mary's throwing one of her infamous, horrible dinner parties, and Rhoda brings a blind date, and it's a very young Henry Winkler, and he's just gotten fired from his job, and all he wants to talk to anybody about is how he's just gotten fired, and he's like bringing the room down. And he was great. He was great, but he's only about 20 years old at the time. It's very funny.
Yeah. I know what it's like to kind of tell the same story a million times over, and have people get bored about that same story. It's happened here. We got
Same page club.
Well, here we got Georgia Eris says,
Gee, thanks, Peepons. Well, you're so welcome.
yes.
And I'm working on your personalized post. It should have it this week.
Awesome. And John H writes,
American Dreams got 3 seasons at least. Yes, it did.
Is that the dance show you were talking about?
Yes, it was set in late 50s Philadelphia, and it was one of those slice of life shows. But the overall framing device was the oldest daughter got a part on American Bandstand and would go every week, and there'd be like some modern musical icon who they would dress up to be Frankie Valli or Linda Gore or someone like that.
Terrell Bellinger writes,
my so-called life was basically the grunge equivalent of 90210 for those who don't really watch 90210.
Yeah, it was. I could see that. I probably actually know more about 90210 than I do about my so-called life. Quite honestly, it's kind of. I don't think I've ever even seen one episode of my so-called life, but I have seen several episodes of 90210. As I mentioned before, I had a girlfriend who was really into the show at the time it was out. I was just 18 or whatever, and I was just happy I had a girlfriend. So whatever she wanted to watch, I was, that's what I wanted to watch, of course. But I don't know. It didn't ever really interest me a whole lot. 90210. It was okay, but it just didn't really quite catch my fancy. Well, I pretended it did, though, for sure. As most people. Were you a 90210 fan at all, or no? Or was that like?
No, I was a little bit older. I would have been in my mid-20s at this time, so I was long out of high school. So I had moved on to what they would call young adult stuff, as opposed to the high school stuff. High school wasn't particularly relevant for me at the time. It wasn't when I was in high school, but by that time I had sort of breached that.
Yeah, but 90210 lasted a while. That's interesting because like we were saying, Freaks and Geeks didn't, and neither did My So-Called Life, and neither did Square Pegs. I guess the thing is the Cool Kids show lasts longer, right?
Irony. Well, they're better looking. I'm afraid. Shannon Doherty, she was gorgeous back then. Luke Perry and
all these
Priestley.
guys right.
I mean, all these beautiful people having beautiful adventures. I mean, how can you not be endeared to that?
Yeah.
So,
well, I didn't think anybody on those other shows were dogs or anything. I think they were fairly attractive.
No,
but yeah, they definitely had that. I do talk about that a little bit about why some people were almost not cast as a result of their looks. But I'm going to leave that one for you guys to watch tomorrow. Yes, I'm going to leave that one for you guys to watch tomorrow. All right.
City D. Sarah Jessica Parker from Square Pegs to Sex and the City. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it really is. What else has she been in? I don't really even know. Like
she had a movie career in between.
Yeah.
It wasn't incredible. She was like the David Caruso of the 80s female starlets. She did TV, and when she made a career from that, she went on to make some movies, had a few starring roles. That kind of petered out, and then she went back to TV and had a bigger career in her second TV career than either of her other two combined.
Right. I remember her from Square Pegs because it's kind of a cult classic. And it's just noticeable, when you notice these, you're like, okay, yeah, she's in Square Pegs. And I know her from Sex and the City because everybody knows that. I mean, unless you're living under a rock, that's like a show that's on that you go, oh, okay, she's on that. And I can't really even, if you right now, like put a gun to my head and said, name another movie she's been on, I wouldn't be able to do it. I know she's been in shows and movies. Was she in a movie with Bruce Willis at one time? Maybe like a cop show or something?
Striking Distance. Yes. Which was also set striking distance. It was set in Pennsylvania. Speaking of Pennsylvania,
Oh,
so
yeah.
yes,
That's interesting.
so yes.
All right.
So there's one.
Yeah.
Daryl Eugene Barringer says Claire Danes from MSCL to Homeland.
Yeah. I heard Homeland's pretty good, but I've never really gotten into it. What about you? You getting into any Homeland or anything like that?
Haven't seen it myself actually. I tend to work nights, so I don't watch a lot of like primetime network television. So I haven't had a chance to see it. I did like her. It was sort of a train wreck, but I did like her in the present day gang themed Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet.
From about 25 years ago. I did like that.
I thought that was a really cool adaptation. Personally,
me too.
I thought it was really good.
And I thought she did a very nice job as Juliet.
Hmm.
Tracy Ross Meyer says, I am Jewish and I enjoyed seeing your beautiful service. It was exceptional. I am in awe of you.
You gotta stop, Tracy. You're gonna make me cry. Thank you. You might like what's up over there now. I actually talk a little bit about the parallel role between Jesus and the high priest. And about how the high priest has the scapegoat and has the Aziel and the propitiation goat, and how Jesus kind of fulfills that. Anyway, it's up today if you're interested in that. It's a little bit longer. It's more the lecture because it's Sunday school. But if you're interested in that kind of thing and seeing those parallels between the Old Testament and Christ, you're more than welcome to watch it. There does get a little bit of a heated debate in there between me and my stepdaughter, actually. So because I was just trying to explain some things, and she's like, "Well, I don't think it's this way." But it's anyway. It wasn't part of the sermon. It was part of the Sunday school, which is where we have like questions and answers and stuff like that. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. You're very nice. Thank you. Be in awe of Christ, not of me. But I appreciate it. I appreciate the sentiment. All right.
Troll Eugene Barringer says I'm guessing best show, American Soul, which aired for only 2 seasons, was based around Soul Train, similar to what American Dreams did for Bandstand. Did not see it, but sounds fascinating. I loved Soul Train when I was a kid.
Yeah, Soul Train was cool.
Teresa Myers, I have always been outside the box.
Well, I get that. I get that. So you probably did like Square Pegs and Freaks and Geeks and those kind of things, I'm sure.
Spike Spikerson, I have a 6 degrees of separation about Betty White. Connect Bruce Campbell to Betty in 3 steps or less. I have 2 answers so far. Ooh, vicious.
I haven't seen the rest of the answers, but Bruce Campbell was in
Army of Darkness, the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah, Evil Dead, but he was in
Briscoe County Jr., the TV show.
The TV show that I'm thinking of. Burn Notice, right? He was in Burn Notice. Yes.
He may have done an episode. He wasn't the star of Burn Notice.
Some
guy from Massachusetts.
No, yeah, I know, but he's a co-star.
Oh, okay, all right. I was thinking the main guy's from Massachusetts. That's how I know.
Yeah, the Burn Notice guy, and then Gabrielle Anwar, or whatever. She's in that, and so is Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell kind of plays the right-hand man to him in that show. So he was in that. And was Betty White ever in any episode of what's that geek show that's out today? The Big Bang. Was she ever in an episode of The Big Bang?
I haven't seen enough episodes. I'm actually going the other way. I'm taking Golden Girls because that is resplendent with guest stars.
Right.
So if you could just find someone who's a guest star like Leslie Nielsen, who did something with Bruce Campbell. In fact, I in my mind, in my heart of hearts, I knew Leslie Nielsen did something with Bruce Campbell, but I can't think of it. One of those parody movies. But
I don't know. That's too much. That's making my brain hurt for tonight. I don't know if I can.
Spike. I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to get back to you, Spike, because I know I can do it. Only 3 steps. I'll try to do it in 3, but I think I'm on the right track.
That's what it's called 6 steps, though, right? I mean, it's called 6
Well, that's why the challenge was he wants us to do it in 3. Yeah. Oh, John H. says, I've always been geeky and non-athletic. I liked geeks, but I've never been a sci-fi fan except for some Twilight Zones,
And
TTF.
Battlefield Earth. Just kidding. Not Battlefield Earth, I'm
But
sure.
of I like Battlefield Earth, but no. I know I should know what BTTF stands for. I know. In fact, I'm going to kick myself when I find out what it was. But
no, I don't know.
I know Twilight Zone, but Back to the Future. Back to the Future.
Oh yes, Back to the Future. Back to the Future. Thank you. You're awesome.
Count it. There we go. Oh, John H. I'm so busy patting myself on the back. Us on the back.
No, I was just rereading that thing. It was the same one. It wasn't a different one. It was the same one. Yeah, the problem that I had was I was athletic, but I wasn't interested in sports. I mean, I just was not interested in sports. I could have been, I still am today. I'm just not interested in sports at all. I was interested in martial arts, which was
kind of a sport.
My deal, my jam. Yeah, it is. There is a competitive aspect to it for sure. But as far as like traditional sports are concerned, I just was never interested. So, most kids are interested in sports, especially boys. They're interested in sports, and that's part of what fed into me hanging out with other people. Hanging out with either the karate crowd or the geek crowd or whatever. And part of my high interest in martial arts was due to Star Wars, So I was,
I can see that.
Everything I did, I wanted to be a Jedi. I mean, that was it. I mean, I entered basically the idea is what can I do to be as close to a Jedi in this world as possible? That was
martial artist, obviously.
Yes, a martial artist, obviously. Martial artist. Right. But I did have people like when we'd play football or something like that, be like, "Oh, you should really go out for the team. You do well." And I'd be like, I can't. I can't. It'll interfere with me watching Battlestar Galactica.
Say. Trill Eugene Ballinger says, as someone who grew up in the 90s, I've always thought that the Nickelodeon cult classic sitcom Salute Your Shorts was a cheaper knockoff of Saved by the Bell. But it took place at a summer camp.
Huh. I've never seen that. I
have.
Have you?
I have, yes. I remember it. Salute Your Shorts. It's one of those, the campers have taken over the camp. It's just these kids, they get sent away to a summer camp and they have little adventures. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Meatballs, only told more through the actual campers, because the head counselor is sort of a geek, so they spend most of their time circumventing his authority to do what they wanted. It was a cute show. It lasted, I want to say, 2 seasons. But right. I can certainly see the connection.
Huh. Saved by the Bell is another one of those TV shows about kids that age, and it's kind of geek friendly. Screech is definitely in there, and definitely, plays the over the top. It's more of a caricature of what high school's like than trying to be a faithful representation. The cool kid's way too cool, and the athletic kid's way too athletic, and the geek kid's way too geeky. But I used to really, really enjoy that show. That show for me, Saved by the Bell, was a guilty pleasure. And I was getting older, and like I didn't want to, sit and watch that show. But I always really I didn't want my friends to know that I watched it, but I always really enjoyed it. All right.
Rest in peace, Dustin Diamond.
Yeah. I was real sad about him passing too. That was very sad about him.
Trathos Myers, I wished she had lived for 3 more weeks at least. I can certainly see that.
I'm sure she wishes that as well.
I'm certain. John H says, I remember on Freaks and Geeks how one of the geeks gave advice on how to get out of dodgeball quickly by being barely hit.
Making a big deal out of being barely hit. Oh, well, what about Freaks and Geeks? Were you a Freaks and Geeks fan or no?
I don't. I think I watched a couple of episodes. I think it ran against a show I was watching at the time, so I don't really remember a lot of it. I do remember when they banned dodgeball in my school system, which is sad because I loved it.
Yeah,
I
I loved
absolutely
it
loved
too.
it. But it was banned in my school system when I was in middle school, and my world stopped making sense. The last thing I liked about gym class went out the window.
Yeah. Did they make you do shit skins and shirts or no?
Oh no, no, we had these old sort of oversized tank tops.
Ah.
And so you'd be tank top or not tank top.
Oh, okay. That's nice that they didn't embarrass you like that because they certainly did make us do skins and shirts, and I never did that. I would leave. I would just leave. I'd
Well,
skip out. I
we
was
had
not
co-ed gym
prepared.
class,
Oh, you had
so they
co-ed
couldn't
gym.
do it in my school. We had co-ed gym class, so you
Yeah,
couldn't do it in my school.
that would be a little awkward.
Although I'm sure the boys would have voted yes.
I don't even know if I would have voted
Uh,
yes for that back then. I would have that would have just been too awkward for me. I just die of embarrassment. But even embarrassment in front of other guys, because we had co-ed gym class, but not co-ed. We had what's the difference between what's not co-ed? What's that word I'm looking for? Uni ed?
segregated.
Segregated.
Unisex. Unisex. Unisex.
But the truth is the girls' gym class would kind of meet sometimes on the other side of the gym, or if we were outside, they would be like on one side of the field, so they could totally see us. And I was like, I'm not going to take my shirt off, and I'm just not. I'm just leaving. That's all there is to it. I'm leaving. Actually, one of the gym teachers we had was actually pretty cool guy. Um, and he would let you sit out. He wouldn't count it against you if you set out. And this was in junior high school though. He just
my
he
gym
wouldn't.
teachers were my gym teachers were always fascists.
Oh really?
Mine were like remember the movie Dodgeball?
Oh yeah.
Mine were always like they wanted to be like great military leaders, and when that failed, they became middle school gym teachers. They were always those crypto fascists. I think was it Woody Allen who said it best? Those who can't teach gym.
Yeah, it always seemed like they wanted to be doing something else, I mean, that's
and
true.
took it out on you. And took it out on you.
For sure.
John H. Tony Randall became a dad at age 77 and 79, but he died at 84.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's sad. So his daughter was who it was, and then I think that his daughter. I mean, that's sad to lose your dad at 14. But 74. Especially for guys. Guys, if you live to 100 as a guy, it's a bigger deal than a woman living longer. Women generally live longer than men.
Cindy D. I love the show You Can't Do That on Television on Nick. Did you like it, ENC? Can you do a video on it?
I loved You Can't Do That on Television. I absolutely loved that show. I thought it was great. I should do it. I've got a couple ahead of that and some other suggestions. I think I'm going to be doing one on Kung Fu next. But You Can't Do That on Television was amazing. It was amazing. And by the way, before I get back to You Can't Do That on Television, I do want to say I don't want to be pigeonholed, I want to do what the fans like, and if you're really liking the top fives, I don't want to not do that, but at the same time, like I don't want to only do that. I kind of want to go and do some other things that I was doing, but I don't know. I mean, if I like doing it, and it's difficult. I might be putting out some other videos too, and I might be doing some top fives on bands as well. So it might not all be television shows or sitcoms or something like that. I also want to do our movies. I want to do some top fives, like 5 things you didn't know about the Beatles, or 5 things you didn't know about Nirvana, or 5 things you didn't know about ACDC, or something like that. I kind of want to do a few of those too. But ultimately, I want to do. It's a balancing act. It's a balancing act between wanting to do what you guys want me to do, and then also doing what I want to do as well. I kind of it's a balancing act between those two things. Um, you can't do that on television. Yeah, I have an interesting relationship with that video because when I moved to Utah, Nickelodeon was just becoming a thing. And I was not, it was actually a few years after because my grandmother moved to Utah too. And they were noticing that I was becoming a little bit of a smart aleck. And my mom and my grandmother did not like the trajectory, let's say, that they were seeing in me, and my grandfather too, but mostly my mother and my grandmother. And so they were under the strong suspicion that the TV shows that I were watching were highly influencing my behavior and my smart aleck attitude. And one of the things that they were very skeptical about me watching was Nickelodeon, and particularly, you can't do that on television. And so it was at times banned in my house, like banned, like I couldn't watch it. And it wasn't not so much in my house because we didn't get cable till late, but my grandmother had it. So when I went over to my grandmother's house, it was can I watch this? Can I watch that? And sometimes it was no, and sometimes it was I think it was more yes as I look back on it because it was getting me out of their hair at least. But sometimes it was no. It's like, well, you don't need to be learning how to disrespect teachers and stuff like that. You don't need to be learning how to disrespect adults because it was, I mean, the whole show is kids get it over on adults. That's kind of the idea of the show. So I love the show. And when I was over at my friend's house, that's what we wanted to watch. You can't do that on television and Nickelodeon and stuff. Anyway, your thoughts on you can't do that on television? You have any?
I always thought it was really, really funny. For some reason, I loved the fact that it was Canadian. As in my youth, I'm like, oh wow, I'm getting a cosmopolitan foreign TV show.
You're a man of the world, right? You're like,
I'm watching Canadian television. And if you listen carefully, every now and then they say a boot or something like that. If you listen really closely, because they were trying really, really hard to act like an American sketch comedy show. So, but I thought it was kind of funny. It reminded me of a Laugh-In for teenagers.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of ate it all up. The token old person they had, the token adult they had, who just died recently, rest in peace, you two. We lost a lot of people lately.
Yeah.
But I thought he was actually very, very funny. Sort of a caricature, but very funny. So yeah, I always thought You Can't Do That on Television was a great show. In fact, I don't know if you do Dave's Archives at all, but he actually aired one at the end of one of his posts. And
did he?
He did a live chat at the end. He put on he capped it off with an episode of You Can't Do That on Television, and people really ate it up. It was a lot of fun.
Cool. I'll have to go back and look that up. I really thought the adult on there, the male adult, was the same guy who played Schneider on One Day at a Time.
I can see that.
When I was a kid, I thought it was the same person. I really thought it was the same person.
And there was Commander USA on the USA Network. He had his own horror movie show on weekends, and it was Commander USA. And I thought they were all the same person, and they weren't. But I can see what you were thinking.
Yeah, I didn't know until I was older and I watched it. I'm like, oh, that's not the same person. But when I was a kid, I swear, I didn't even know that it wasn't. I thought, oh, he just, it's the same guy. This is an actor. He's acting on You Can't Do That on Television. He acted on One Day at a Time. It's the same guy from One Day at a Time. It was Schneider or whatever.
Lisa Fields. My kids watched Salute Your Shorts. It was funny. It was funny.
I think some of those kid shows are aimed at adults too.
Well, they put in stuff for adults so that adults who are stuck watching the kids have something to be amused by it. When my granddaughter was very, very little, when she was like 3 or 4, she watched Nickelodeon all day long. I watched more Nickelodeon than I watched primetime television. And it was funny if you listen like really closely, It's like, okay, that had to have been a reference to something that an adult would get. That no kid's gonna get that. Like one of my personal favorites was it was a show about this kid who, instead of a genie, they're magic goldfish, a Fairly Odd Parents, and he's always being victimized by his babysitter. And in one episode, she gets a boyfriend who turns out to be an even bigger jerk than she is, and his name is Ricky. And when they break up at the end and Ricky storms out, she goes, "Ricky, don't lose that number." And I'm like, how many 4-year-olds are going to get that?
Yeah, right.
Things like that. You had to watch for them, but they were there.
Not too many people. Cindy D is in the chat here. I see her. She's asking for my my church address. It's a New Covenant Grace. Cindy, if you at the end of the show, what I'll do is I'll post a link in the box for it here. I think if you put in it's not, I mean, I barely have like 107 subscribers, and I just got like 10 of those from Dave the other day. So but I will put in a link in just a minute here. As a matter of fact, let's do this. I'm going to have you riff on something here, and then I'll go ahead and put that in. Okay. Let's see. Let's see this.
Oh, John H. says her dad told her he'd buy her contact lenses once her eyes were no longer growing.
I don't know what that's about.
It sounds like something someone said to Sarah Jessica Parker because she had glasses when she was a kid. That's a wild, stabbing guess. Eyes stop no longer growing. Huh. It's a great fact. I just wish I could associate it with somebody.
I don't know. Riff on something for just a second.
I will riff on something. So I don't know. By the way, I don't know if any of you folks know, I have a new shtick that I've been doing on my channel. I shamelessly borrowed it from Dan Staten, his Dan Daily blog. He was doing some vintage comic book reviews where he would take a comic book and sort of very humorously read through it. He and I get to talking about vintage comics. I have many myself, actually. And I hinted that I would like to do something along the same lines myself. And he's like, go for it. So I don't feel like I was ripping him off. So I'm doing something now on my channel called Wretched Recaps. And I just did my first one on an old World War II comic told from the German point of view. And it's not nearly as creepy as that sounds. But I try to do it. It's not a particularly good comic, so I do it as sort of a lampoon as opposed to an actual valid read through. What I'm trying to say is check it out, and while you're there, like, subscribe, and guys, I'm this close to 100.
You gotta get you to 100. Yes.
If everyone in the chat tonight goes and subscribes tonight, I might just make it.
Now,
I ask for so little. Yes.
We do need to work on your thumbnails. We have, because really that's what makes you stand out. But honestly, there's a really super good tutorial. It's so easy. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm serious.
You know,
it's so easy.
I tried to do you sent me the link. I tried to go there and I had some problem. I was going to mention it to you. We could talk about it later, but I did get rid of my generic thumbnail app. I thought it was a funny shtick. Dave's like, Bob. Yeah. So the generic thumbnail app shtick that I was doing, I have tabled. The last couple of thumbnails that I did myself, I thought came out better. They're improving, but no, I'm going to give an actual professional thumbnail.
It's super. It's free too. It's a free. It's free to do.
Free is good.
I put that in the comment section, a link to the New Covenant Grace comment section. So if you want to go over to that site and check out some of my preaching.
It's good you did, by the way, because I actually looked up New Covenant myself the other day, and you'd be astonished how many are in the scroll. Yeah, I figured you'd be like near the top. No, there's thousands of New Covenant. So
yeah, I mean, that's kind of a common name, and of course, I'm only, like I said, barely past 100, so mine's going to be way at the bottom. Let's see.
Something else to riff on.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
No, that was what we just did.
That was the one you just did.
And we're still trying to figure out who he's talking about. Cindy D, you could have did 10 facts on ENC. We could have did that.
10 facts on, what does it mean? 10 facts on me, or
I think it's about me,
comma ENC.
Well, because I was doing my top 10s, I can do the top 10 funny things you don't know about ENC.
Oh,
I think that's
no.
what you were suggesting.
Let's
No, let's
let's
not do
not do
that.
that. Let's not do that. Yeah, but I was thinking the top 10 on. I almost did more. The problem is I do a couple of different things here on YouTube, and one of the things I do on
Like
YouTube
7.
is a podcast. And the podcasts are they're really podcasts. I just make them available on YouTube. I mean, that's kind of how it is. It's I have a podcast app and everything. That not an app, but I have a podcast. Um, Channel that you can get on, it's Retro Serial. You can get it on Apple, you can get it on Spotify, and it's the podcast portion where I have guests on and I talk to them and stuff like that, and I just make it available on YouTube. And then I'd have this Monday night thing where I interact with the guests, and that just kind of goes for however long it goes. But the YouTube stuff I need to keep YouTube-y. I try to keep it be under 15 minutes kind of thing, because people just lose interest after a while. 10 minutes, between like 7 to 12 minutes is like YouTube heaven. That's what people normally watch. And some people have longer YouTube stuff. There's a guy that I've talked about many times named Minty. His comedic, his sometimes goes 20 minutes. His early stuff went like a half an hour and it didn't go anywhere. He had to cut it down, and then it started to go places. So I try to keep it on the best, uh, I try to keep it around 10 minutes for the YouTube stuff. That makes sense. And I don't even know that's what you were talking about, but that's what I was talking about. Go ahead.
Sort of like the Goldilocks frame. This is too long, this is too short, but this is just right. So
right. Let's see.
Blackadder. Merritt Buttrick is an odd name. It is an odd name. Yeah. And I'm always afraid I'm saying it wrong, but that's his name.
Well, I butchered the names on that. I said that when I talk about it tomorrow on the video I did. Like I say, I'm going to butcher these names because I am just not good at reading names. That's all there is to it.
Oh, Jason Goldtrap. Hello, Jason.
Jason, thanks for joining us this evening.
Welcome to the party. The best Star Trek spinoff in...
I don't know what that meant, but...
I think you may have trailed off there.
Let's talk about... oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait.
Oh, the best Star Trek spinoff is the Orville. Oh, the show with Don't tell me. The guy from Family Guy.
Yeah.
Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah, Seth MacFarlane. I gave it a try. I thought it was going to be funnier than it was. I wasn't that too impressed with it. Have you seen it?
Yes. I thought, how should I put it? As a parody goes, I thought it worked very well. He really did his research in the same way Mike Myers did his research for Austin Powers movies. He really got a feel for these sort of secret agent movies. Seth MacFarlane really got a feel for a space opera sci-fi, but it was like flipping a coin. He couldn't make up his mind if he wanted to go to true parody or more of a lighthearted spoof. And every time I watched an episode, I felt it just missed something. If that makes any sense to you,
No, I completely agree. For me, I felt like it was more like a serious show, but more lighthearted. It was like I actually got wrapped up in their adventures and thinking their adventures were cool. I'm like, if this had like 2 less jokes in it, it would be
serious.
It would be a serious show. And that's actually what I liked about it. But what I didn't like about it was nobody wants to see a serious show with too many jokes. Either you make it a funny spinoff, a funny parody, or you make it a serious show. But it was that part of it was actually pretty good. I was just like, this is, when they get caught to be in the zoo, and when all the stuff that they were doing was like, this could be an episode of Star Trek, or this could be an episode of something serious. And
he truly loved Star Trek. He truly was a fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what else do we got here. I think we got some banter going back and
Ah,
forth between
banter
people
on the
here.
run. Banter on the
They're on the
run.
run. Yeah,
Ban-
unfortunately, I did say that
ah.
too in the thing yesterday.
Oh
Um,
dear.
yeah, in 89,
Oh,
1989.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Over 30 years
So,
ago.
yeah, a while back. Let's see. What else do we have here?
Oh, Blackadder. I never thought Miller Tyler Moore was that funny. It was the supporting cast. Couldn't agree with you more. I always felt that the Ted Baxter character was the funniest part of the show. I really did.
Yeah. I really don't remember. I mean, I remember watching it, when it was on. I didn't not watch it, but I mean, I just didn't seem to. I don't know. It just didn't never really catch my attention beyond it being on. And guess who's here?
David! David
Hey,
Sundstrom in the house says, "Hey, everyone."
yeah.
Hello, David.
Hey, Dave. How you doing, buddy? Yeah, we're gonna do. He's gonna be doing a Betty White tribute over on his channel on Wednesday. And
Wednesday.
if he has guests, then of course I'd be on and talk more about that over on his show. But
I'm sure I could make myself available too.
yeah, but yeah, super sad. And people in the comments, even though we're way down in the comments, Tracy Rothmeyer wrote, "I'm still sad about Betty White." You and me both. You and me both. It's real sad. It's super sad. Let's see.
Trey Meyer says, "I used to watch Gigi with my grandma."
I think that's Golden Girls.
I think let's go with that. So yes, Gigi, Gigi,
Whatever that would.
Golden
I used
Girls.
to, Tracy. We live parallel lives because I used to watch Golden Girls with my grandmother too. Actually, I didn't even watch it unless she wanted to watch it. So I mean, it was on at her house, and I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house too. My mom being a single mom, and and sometimes being watched by my grandparents, my grandmother being most interactive with me. Yeah, I watched that show quite a bit, quite a bit. Thought it was funny. Um, let's see.
Lisa Fields, I think Betty would love to hear jokes. I think that's a reference to my horrible dad jokes. If it
Oh,
is, Lisa, thank you very, very much.
uh, okay. Let's see. What's we got here? I don't know. Let's see. What does this say?
Cindy D. They were still great friends. He talked about her passing on CNN.
I don't know who that would have been in reference to. There's probably some
She
banter
had
back.
so many friends. Did you hear the story of that Steve Martin the day before she passed?
Yes.
Yeah, did you hear that? That was an amazing story. For those of you who missed it, he was opening up for Linda Ronstadt or someone in a nightclub, and he was sort of warming up the crowd. This is Steve Martin when he was a young comic in like '74, and he saw Alan Ludden and Betty White at a table, and he went up to say hi because he was a huge fan of both of them. And he goes, "I'm so glad you came for the show. Linda Ronstadt's great, isn't she?" And they go, "We're here to see you. We think you're hysterical." And he almost
Oh,
started crying because these wonderful people who he was a big fan of had actually come solely, well, not solely, but primarily to see him. And it just made his day. And he posted that story on Twitter the day before Betty White passed. And I just thought it was a beautiful story and thought
yeah.
I'd share it.
Yeah. All right.
Tracy Rosmeyer says, "I was not into 90210. I was older. I was a little bit too old for it myself, Tracy."
I was not into it really either, but when you got a girlfriend and you're 18, you're into it. So, and she's into it, then you're into it.
David Sundstrom, I have to admit that I watched my fair share of 90210.
Yeah,
Well,
well, I watched my fair share too.
can't blame you. And yes, I was older.
Probably we didn't watch it for the same reasons, but definitely did watch my fair share of 90210.
Jason Goldtrap says, "I'm one of 4 people in America who liked that '80s show." I like that '80s show too.
Did you?
I yeah, I wish they had given it more of a chance.
Yeah.
It was missing something, and I'm not sure what. I think they were like so busy trying to load in the '80s nostalgia, they sometimes forsake story,
Hmm.
so there wasn't as much to really grip you. But let's face it, that show would probably do better now than it did back then because it seems '80s nostalgia is bigger now than it was 20 years ago. But I like the show myself, and of course now the main character from that show has now been on guilty pleasure of mine. I must confess, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and
Oh,
that show is
okay.
now in its 15th year now.
Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
15 years.
Well, I love that '70s show. I was a huge fan. I was really happy to hear about that '80s show. I was expecting to be a huge fan, and I never saw a single episode. I have seen episodes since because there's a few of them on YouTube that you can watch for free. But I just didn't catch it before it was off the air. So I would have loved it. I would have loved it. Which let me ask you this question. Which era are you most embarrassed about the way you looked? If I got a picture of you from the '70s, and I got a picture of you from the '80s, and I got a picture of you from the '90s, those three eras, which one would you be most embarrassed about showing people?
It would definitely be the '70s. My mom had a thing for long hair, so I had this like bushy, wavy, curly, crazy hair. I had embarrassing '70s headgear, and
Yes.
I. Well, that's enough. Those two things right there. By the time the '80s rolled around, I was doing the short hair thing, and I was in my dress for success phase. Until I went to college, I started wearing Hawaiian shirts. So I'm sure you can find an embarrassing photo of me in the '80s and possibly even the '90s. But the '70s, if my mother brought an old photo album, I would either try to hide it or myself.
Yeah. Gotcha. What about '90s? Anything
Uh,
from?
no, by the time '90s, I was actually out of college and I was doing the professional thing. So I'm sure you could find an embarrassing photo of me, but
Oh,
I was pretty straight laced back then.
yeah.
So it was really the '70s with that '70s hair. Remember, the '70s had the dumbest hair. Everyone had like the either the big fro or just
Yeah.
the and again headgear. It was just humiliating. They went to great lengths through the '80s to make it less traumatizing for the kids who had to wear it. But when I was a kid, it was made to be effective and not aesthetic. And it
Yeah.
looked like someone had wired my mouth for sound. It was just humiliating. And oh
Well,
my god, I think I've burned all the photos of me from the
oh
'70s.
no, you can't burn them. They're funny. Well, my '70s ones aren't as embarrassing because I was too little, and so
Mhm.
there's no personal responsibility there. I mean, yeah, I look like I look like a 4-year-old in a leisure suit or whatever, but I didn't dress myself, so I don't really have any embarrassment there. The bell bottoms or whatever. But the '80s for me for sure. Oh gosh. I'm actually gonna. I actually came across when I was cleaning this office up some older pictures, and I am gonna share one of those older pictures of me from the '80s and an embarrassing story that goes along with it. I'm going to get the Glitter Boom Girls back on one time,
Oh,
and I've been talking to them, but
both
they
of them?
haven't. Yeah, I hope so. Well, it'll be on like a Sunday because it'll be filmed, and then I'll do the podcast thing. But what I want to do with them is like fashion faux pas and stuff like that, and where we tell our most embarrassing fashion stories. And so I'm gonna show an old photo of myself, and it'll be funny. You guys will enjoy it and the story, but I'm gonna keep it to there. Yeah, I mean, '80s was bad news for me. I really, really, really wanted to be Vince Neil in the '80s. So, all right, let's see. Buffering. Oh, Dave wrote something up here. Let's see what you had to say, Dave.
Mr. Sunstrom says, I've been enjoying watching Luke Perry recently on the CW's Riverdale.
I've never even heard of that show, really. I I don't know. I don't know. And then he also writes it was sad for him to pass away. Yeah,
Yes.
that was sad.
He had the saddest quote. Of course, he started out virtually as a child actor, and then sort of grew up with the rest of us. And right before he died, he said, "What gave him like great satisfaction was that he was finally old enough to play the dad, having played the bad boy kid. Now he's playing the dad, and he had really, really hoped to live long enough to play the granddad." And I was like, "Oh, I thought I was going to cry." That was very, very sad. So yes, rest in peace, Mr. Perry.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Lisa Field says, "I watched 90210 because of Luke Perry."
I think a lot of people did. I watched 90210 because of my girlfriend. That's why I watched it. All right. Let's see. Hocus
Jordy here
Pocus.
says Hocus Pocus.
I think that might have been in reference to thinking of one movie with Sarah Jessica Parker in it.
Yes, she was one of the witches in it. Yes,
we are way behind here. If people, that was that one.
I was going to say that was like,
oh gosh, yes.
Oh, Trathos Myers. Yes. I liked Degrassi Junior High. It was a cute show. Another Canadian TV show.
I love Degrassi Junior High. You know, I was just saying that the new Cobra Kai reminds me of a violent Degrassi Junior High. It really does. I was just saying this, like, I think last night or the night before. We were in the middle of watching it, and and I was just like, you know what, this is kind of like Degrassi Junior High, but for violent people. All right, I love that show too. I thought it was great. As it went on, I didn't keep up with it, but I did watch it when it was on Nickelodeon when I was a kid.
Spike Spikerson says SJP was in the LA Story with Steve Martin. Sarah Jessica Parker was in LA Story. Yes, she was.
Oh yes, and this travesty of a movie.
Sarah Jessica Parker, Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Yeah,
I think that was her first feature film.
I liked it. You know, she was in Broadway before she was on Square Pegs. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, she was. She was one of the only ones that people like. She was actually a big name to come and do that. That didn't make it on my top 5 list, so that's why I'm saying to everyone.
Was it the Mean Valley Girl? Wasn't she? I thought she did stuff before that show too. What's her name?
She did. Nelson is.
But you know what I'm talking about. Nelson, yes, Nelson, daughter of Ricky Nelson.
Yeah. Yeah, that is on the show. That is on, but that's not one of the main facts. That's not one of the main facts, but I do mention that as a bonus fact. So you can get a bonus fact. Yes, she is a daughter of Ricky Nelson. Yeah, okay.
Jason Goldtrap says LA Story is very romantic. Great sung by Enya. I'm not familiar with the soundtrack, but I remember the movie. I'm not
familiar with the soundtrack either. I remember Enya though. So I mean, a lot of people really liked her. I liked her more as I got older. Let's see.
Mr. Sunsum says, I'm doing great, everyone. Been working on a video about Richard Simmons.
Well,
talking about 80s nostalgia.
Yeah, one of the guys that I did a podcast with early on, who's a friend of mine, has a pretty interesting story about Richard Simmons. My friend is a filmographer, and he was in Hollywood like from 1964 to like 90 something, and he has 4 Emmys. And I interviewed him early on. And he's a guy who actually helped me a lot in like learning how to do video editing and stuff like that. And he said that he has this thing where Richard, why do I keep forgetting that guy's name? Richard Simmons, you know, the weight loss guy. He's like running upstairs, and he said he was so full of energy that he had a hard time keeping up with him with the camera, and that he actually toppled over backwards over a copy machine because he's trying to he was trying to like lead the camera up somewhere. Anyway, I think it's on the story there. But yeah, it would be great to hear something about Richard Simmons. I like Richard Simmons. We did the Richard Simmons diet in my house at one time. We had Sweat into the Oldies. We did the whole, you get so many proteins a day and so many fats and so many carbs, and they had the little meal deal thing, the meal deal where you go across. But we didn't have the cards that went across. We had a little windows that clicked down. I don't know. I still actually might even have some of that. I did a show one time really early about late night television and I brought out all my late night television stuff. It's one of my first videos. So you have to go in there and go way, way back. But it's called Order Now. And in that, I show you like all the stuff that I've gotten from late night television that I still have around. And I just talk about it. It was pretty fun. And I believe I still have a Richard Simmons audio tape from that time. Anyway, all right. Good hang. Good times talking.
John H. says, Patrick Dempsey played nerds in 1980s movies. More recently, he played a hunky doctor on Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, not a fan of that show. Everybody loves
My granddaughter loves Grey's Anatomy. Her and mom watch it together. It's a ritual. And it's so funny because for you Walking Dead fans out there, the character of Negan, who is one of the most intense villains in American television history, was on Grey's Anatomy and played one of the most lovable characters of the entire show's run. And one day I was watching something and it had Jeffrey Dean Morgan on it. And my granddad was like, "Oh, that's Dennis. I love him. And I'm like, "You love Negan?" And he plays totally different characters, apparently.
Yeah. Grey's Anatomy. I didn't care for that show. We tried to watch the first few seasons of it. My wife loved it. I didn't. That was just one of those shows that I just got burnt out. We're on really quickly. He played Dr. Dreamy or whatever, Dr. McDreamy. I was like, oh gosh, give me a break. He should be called Doctor. He should be called Dr. No McBackbone. Is what he should be taught. Is what he should be called. Because he just lets everybody walk all over him, and it's supposed to be manly. I'm like, give me a break. Just get a backbone, please. Anyway, I'll go on. It's like This Is Us. I hate that show too. Can't even stand that show. This Is Us. I'm supposed to be positive here. I'm supposed to be positive. Let's turn our attention to something positive.
Turtle Eugene Behringer says, Sarah Jessica Parker and Matthew Broderick will celebrate their 25th anniversary as a married couple this year. Just had my 25th myself, actually.
Congratulations.
So, thank you, and kudos to them. Thank you very much.
What's funny is I used to work with this girl who got married on the same day and the same year as I did. And
no kidding.
Yeah. I used to work with her. It was at a restaurant. And she got married on the same day and the same year I did. And it was funny because we used to joke. It's like, yeah, we've been married for, 20 years. Not to each other, but we're both celebrating our 20th anniversary or whatever. So it was kind of an inside joke that we had. All right. A bunch of stuff about Sarah Jessica Parker in a bunch of stuff. I was
People
a big fan of
really love Sarah Jessica Parker, don't they?
Yeah. I was a big fan of Matthew Broderick. There is a
Ferris
show.
Bueller.
Oh yeah, Ferris Bueller. I mean, all kinds of different shows, different movies that he's been in. What was the name of that? Out on a Limb. Did you ever see that? Out on a Limb?
Oh,
I think it was 1990.
It's ringing a bell.
It's a pretty funny show. What's
the premise?
It's one of those comedies where like things go wrong. Like if it can go wrong, it does go wrong, but it's funny. I don't know. Go check it out. It's pretty funny. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I used to watch it quite frankly, I used to watch it quite a bit. Let's see. Oh, look what we got here.
Dave says Bruce Campbell was also in all of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. They went to college together. They've been friends for 40 years, probably.
Yeah.
And Jason Coldrap says, whatever happened to Kevin Bacon? Oh, he probably had a few extra degrees. I don't know. I actually just recently saw him in a commercial for something. So He's doing commercials at least.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he's hanging out with his millions. He probably doesn't have to work unless he has to, unless he wants to. Probably doesn't have to work unless he has to. Like, who doesn't have to
I,
work unless they have to?
well, I know, really.
He probably doesn't have to work unless he wants to. That's what I
Wants to.
mean. Yeah, unless he wants to.
I knew what you meant. I was agreeing with you because I knew what you were trying to say.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Well, I'm
Yo.
going to dash down to kind of some of the
I knew what you meant.
into the comments. Um,
Let's see.
yeah, let's see. Cindy D writes here.
Matthew B was supposed to be Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. He turned it down.
Yeah, he did. That's unfortunate. Well, it's unfortunate for him. I could see him in that role, but honestly, I mean, Michael J. Fox just killed it. I mean, he just killed it. Look who's joined us. I was wondering where you were, John.
John Collins, woo woo! John Collins
Glad
in
you
the
could make it.
house. SPJ was in Sarah Jessica Parker, obviously, was in Flight of the Navigator. Yes, she was.
Which one
Yes,
was
she
Flight
was.
of the Navigator? Which one was that?
Oh, it was the sort of 80s kids sci-fi movie. I'm
No,
trying to
you're
think of it.
not.
I don't get it.
You're not thinking of Explorers, are you?
No. I want to. I'm trying to remember who the kid was. It's one of those Lost Time movies, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly. A kid is abducted by aliens, and he comes back years later, and he's the same age, and everyone else has gotten older by time dilation. And if I say any more, I'll destroy the plot or the ending, I should say.
Okay.
But Sarah Jessica Parker plays a lab doctor who's studying the phenomenon. I
Hmm.
haven't seen the movie in 30 years, so forgive me if I got anything wrong. But I want to say I thought Fred Savage was the kid, but I could be way off. He's someone who looked like Fred Savage at least,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. Lisa Field says I lost 40 pounds during swing to the oldies
Well,
in the
that
90s.
yeah, that's interesting. We got it in the '90s too. Well, my questions, my follow up questions would be on that. Would be, did you just do the sweating to the oldies, just the workout, or did you do the whole meal plan? And what was it long? Was it long term successful? Anytime somebody loses a significant amount of weight, you want to celebrate it and you want to be awesome, great, but the problem with a lot of diets is that, and believe me, I know, I've been on all of them, is that they have a lot of success in the short run, but they don't have a lot of success in the long run. There are very few diet plans out there that I do recommend, but I do recommend a few that actually lead to kind of long-term success. And it really is a matter of whether or not it's gimmicky and whether or not it can fit into your lifestyle. Any diet you can do consistently over time, you'll be successful at it. If it's something you really can't do over time, you might lose weight in the beginning, but your body fights. Your body fights you on this whole thing. Your body fights you. I mean, it really does. It really wants to stay at a certain weight. And one of the people I really like to listen to when it comes to weight loss is a guy named John Gabriel. If you ever a chance to look him up, he's got a really good program. It's one of them that I recommend. It's one of the 5 that I recommend. But he basically likens going on a diet to sleep deprivation. Like I could say, like if your problem is that you sleep too much, and through sheer willpower, you could stay awake for a while, but eventually you're going to crash and you're going to fall asleep. And, if I told you, you could lose weight if you just exercise more and cut back your calories and stayed on it. And that's all stuff that you can control. But what you can't control is the level of hunger you experience, and you can't control the level of cravings you experience. And so those fight back against you, and you have to learn how to work with your body to take off the weight. So those would be things that I'd be interested in how that went for you. But that's another show. But you got me. That's one of those issues that I like to talk about quite a bit because I lost a lot of weight. I've lost over 90 pounds, and or up to 90 pounds, and I've kept it off for over 10 years, or for about 10 years. And so it's one of those shows. It's one of those issues that I like to talk about quite a bit. I could go on for a while. All right, let's see here.
Danny Staten in the house. Wrestling must be over now. Danny
Yes,
Staten
Danny,
says,
glad to see you.
well, once again, dude, you're going to need Doc Brown's DeLorean to catch up with this chat. Laugh out loud. Yes,
Yeah.
you're a little bit late, but we'll forgive you. Now that you're here, all's right with the world.
Well, I think he was talking about us. I think he was
Oh,
talking about,
we're
because
gonna.
remember we were so high up in the comments and people were
Oh,
so far down. I
we're
actually
gonna.
went I actually went down to the last one because we're coming up on about an hour and a half here, just to make sure
Yes,
that
we are. Well, we're
I
having a
don't
lot of
want to
fun.
miss anything. Yeah, we're having tons of fun here. Let's see here.
John H says, I remember Richard Simmons on Real People back around 1980. I love that show, Real People.
Yeah, I remember him back on that show too. Actually, was he a regular or was he just like a featured person?
I think he was a guest here and there, a recurring guest, maybe. 'Cause I don't remember him on every episode. But again,
Yeah,
I'm going back 40 years.
Real People was cool. It kind of reminded me of kind of a different version of That's Incredible.
Yes, yes. Less,
Yeah,
less, wacky, less wild, more just
yeah,
amusing people. The first beatboxer I ever saw was actually on that show. A guy who did sound effects solely with his mouth.
yeah. That's incredible. That's incredible. Or yeah, that was an interesting show.
Yeah, I
Uh,
like that one too. Oh,
yeah.
Spike Spikerson says, I always have dumb hair. When it rains, I look like Bobby Brady. And when it's dry and windy, I look like flock of seagulls. I would
Uh,
prefer a flock of seagulls.
I think I might. I don't know. That's a tough one. Flock of Seagulls is pretty tough. And people saying here, John H says,
John H says, 70s most embarrassing for me.
all
I think there's a
right.
lot of that going around.
I got it. All right. All right. Let's see. Oh, look who joined us here too.
Oh, I'm feeling so honored with this chat. The
I
Life and
know.
Sad ending. Timestamp 9:53 p.m. But you're here and you are welcome, and it's always nice to see you, Steve.
Yeah, it is always nice to see you. John Collins writes,
John Collins. Pee Wee Herman is the voice of the UFO in Flight of the Navigator. I
oh,
never, ever knew Paul Rubens did that voice. Thank you.
oh, oh,
Thank you.
all right. Let's see here.
Oh, Ian, you have to do videos. I'm sorry, I'll come in again.
You
Ian, you have to do videos you enjoy. We will conform.
conform. I think that's
Conf-
our yeah, conform. We will conform. Well,
we'll go
thank
with
you
it.
for that bit of it, that bit of encouragement. It's a tightrope. I mean, I do want people to be happy with what I do. So, and I do, and I don't mind doing those top 5 videos, and I still am planning on doing top 5 videos. It's just, there are other things I want to do as well, and I only have so many hours allotted in a day. So there might be like, push off the top 5 for a little bit to do a couple other things, then get back to top 5 or something like that. But I don't plan on doing that anytime quickly.
Daryl Johnston. Hello, Daryl. Daryl Johnson says in 1978, a boy travels 8 years into the future and has an adventure with an intelligent, wisecracking alien ship. So I was
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
was in the ballpark. Yeah, he's talking about Flood of the Navigator. I was in the ballpark, and correct me if I'm wrong, Daryl, but when the boy comes back and he's 8 years, well, he's the same age. Everyone else is 8 years older. Sarah Jessica Parker is one of the doctors in the laboratory who tries to study this phenomenon. I believe that's where we came in. But thank you for fleshing out my very sketchy plot synopsis.
All right, and look who decided to join us.
Oh,
Just at the
hey,
very
Flicksnacks and
end.
Knickknacks. He's saying, "Hey, Spike. Hey to you there, Flicksnacks. Good to see you, Daryl."
Yeah. Hey. Derek has a great idea that he's doing over on his channel right now. I mean, it's really, really good. And what he is doing is he's doing war movies by time period, by a subgenre time period. So he's doing he just did one on ancient and medieval, and then he's going to do one on like revolutionary wartime, and then he's going to do one like on modern wartime or something like that. And I thought that was quite genius to do. I think that's awesome, and so we're definitely going to have you back on. Let me talk a little bit about some people who I need to get back on the program, especially on a Monday night, and talk. Um,
Me.
well, yeah, of course, but I want to do one on Batman, and so I'm gonna have Dave. And I think what I'll do is I'll do it on a Monday night. I won't do it like on a Thursday private show, but I'll do it on a Monday night. And I'll even see if Fat Samurai wants to join us. I'll reach out to him. I don't want him to feel obligated, because he does shows on Mondays, and people, give money in his chat thing. So if he does it on my show, he's not going to be able to earn that coin. So I didn't want that to be a factor. And he's such a nice guy that he'd probably say yes and just, you know, but I would love to have him and Dave and Flick Snacks, and of course you, Thrash, on the show as well, to talk about Batman, the upcoming show, and just talk about all our favorite emanations of it and our least favorite emanations of Batman as well. Another person who I've been thinking about lately is Redbeard. I need to get him back on the show. It's sad that I only do one show a week on Mondays, but him and Pat both. But I might split that up between different days. One of the things I want to do is I want to do one on Christian rock, like talk about Christian rock, and the other one. Well, hang on. Mystery Men asks, whose channel has war movies? This guy right here, Flick Snacks and Knickknacks. Go check his show out. Right? Yeah, it's awesome.
An excellent post. It's his new post, and it's excellent.
All of his stuff's really good, actually, but that one's really that was a genius move.
It is. I'm a huge war buff too, and I thought it was a great idea. Very good idea.
And so I forgot what I was saying. I want to do one on Christian
God Rock,
and the other one I want to do is
Satanic Rock. I'm kidding.
I did that on the thrash music side, on the darker side of music. I did that. The other one I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about Ozzy Osbourne's guitarists. So I wanted to have.
Also, I was right.
Yeah. I wanted to have Pat McCormick on to talk maybe about Ozzy Osbourne's, as he did work with one of them, one of the lesser known, only played on one live album with Ozzy. So, but I was, when I grew up, I wanted to play like Randy Rhoads. So, anyway, that's kind of what's coming up.
One thing.
Yes.
Okay, so speaking of Pat McCormick, I just wanted to give a shout out. For those of you who haven't seen it, there's a new post out. Actually, it's an old post, but it just got some momentum. It's Pat appears in a video for Let It Go, not the Disney version. It's sort of a rockabilly version of Let It Go. And he does the background guitar and background vocal, and he is outstanding. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out, please.
Yeah.
It's from the Soap Opera Digest Awards from like 14 years ago, but it's out there. Oh, and John Collins.
Well, I wanted to put this up because John will just keep pushing the enter button, and we've got it here. So go ahead and read it.
Oh, yes. John Collins says, Ian, you have to do videos you enjoy. We will conform to enjoying them because we like you. That's the truth. Because if not you will get burned out and it will be over.
I appreciate that. Yes, I do. I do have to do videos I enjoy. I enjoy doing a lot of videos, that's for sure. Wish I could do it more often. But again, eventually I will do it more often. But that's it for what I got planned. Again, I'm going to reach out to the Glitter Boom Girls again real soon here and get back with them and do a podcast with them, and hopefully a Monday, or maybe I might have to move to a Wednesday night in order to get Amy on as well. But something with them will happen. I reached out to them during the holidays and they said, hey, they're taking a break until the holidays are over, but they're back on it now. So that'll be fun. I know you guys always really like doing that. So that's it for me. That's what's going on. I'm hoping next Monday I will do one on Kung Fu, and it'll be out on the Tuesday or Wednesday after that. And I don't know what else. What do you got going on?
Well, I have my new, recently remodified new post. It's something I did. It's in the spirit of Denny Staten's comic book reviews. I have something I call a wretched recap, where I
Yes.
pull out old comic books from the 70s and 80s and do a sort of comically whimsical overview of the comic. It's gotten some good feedback, and I plan on doing more of those. I'm also still doing my series of, to all new subscribers, give me whatever topic of your heart's content, and I will do a post in your honor. I'm still doing that. I have one planned for this week and next week, and so on and so on. And again, if all of you folks who are in the chat tonight subscribe, I'll break the 100 mark. So please, I'm asking, begging, do me a favor. Everyone, once you're done with our wonderful chit chat tonight, go to my channel and please subscribe and get me over 100. And
Yeah.
again, tell me whatever your topic is, and I will do a post on that in your honor.
And if you've got
And
multiple channels out there, so I've got,
well,
like I've got several channels and I subscribed on all of your channels. And my mom's got a channel too. Well, she's not a content channel, but I subscribed on her channel too. I told her to subscribe. So if if you've got one of these things where you've got several different channels, please, like if you got your content channel and then you've got like a channel you don't have content on, please go over and subscribe to him as well. And thank you all. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun interacting. Share,
really
like,
was.
share, comment, subscribe. And yeah, please go to Thrash Pondo's channel, Thrash Pondo Pawns. You can read that up there, Thrash Pondo Pawns, and type that
Yep.
in. And it's a little circle there, little gray circle with a T. That's what you got,
Brown.
right? Oh, brown.
It's brown for some reason. Yes,
Oh,
little
yeah,
brown
okay,
circle with a T.
Brown circle with a
I've
T.
got to come up with a logo, but baby steps.
Baby steps. All right. All right. We're taking them. We're taking them. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. It has been awesome. Take care, everyone.
Ciao
Stay
for now.
retro.